The day my wife demoted me, I took the entire company. Everyone in the conference room was looking at me. Vivian sat at the head of the table, wearing a dark blue suit, her fingers tapping against the surface. After careful deliberation by the company's management, and in order to optimize the organizational structure, the following personnel adjustments are hereby announced. She paused, not looking at me. Market Department Manager Simon is promoted to Vice President of the company, effective immediately. He will also serve as Head of Operations, taking full charge of the Operations Department's management. A few low gasps. Simon sat on her right, his back ramrod straight. Former Operations Department Head Noah. This time she looked over. I looked up too and met her eyes. In a flicker of hesitation passed through her gaze, but it was quickly crushed by something called decisiveness. Is reassigned to the position of Data Specialist in the Operations Department, reporting to Vice President Simon. He will no longer participate in any management meetings. The room fell dead silent. Simon leaned forward half an inch. He was waiting for me to explode, to demand an explanation, to throw a tantrum at my wife like some pitiful abandoned fool. Closed the folder in my hands. Stood up. Took off the badge from my chest and placed it on the table. The plastic shell hit the surface with a click. All right, just one word. I quit. I did not look at her, not at Simon, not at any of the faces around the table. I turned, pushed the door open and walked out. The corridor was long. My footsteps fell one after another into the silence. Behind me, the conference room door closed again. Knew exactly what expressions were on the faces inside that room now. Simon was making a show of calming everyone down. Vivian was forcing herself to look composed. The rest of the executives were exchanging every kind of look, but none of that had anything to do with me anymore. The elevator doors opened. I walked in and pressed the button for the underground parking level. The numbers ticked down one by one. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A message from Chloe. Just one line. She announced it. No sign of turning back. I put the phone away. The elevator arrived. The underground parking lot was dimly lit. Miles was leaning against a black sedan. When he saw me come out, he opened the trunk and took out a black garment bag. I took off the old grey suit I had worn for 3 years. Put on the custom-made dark black suit. The fabric held a low, quiet sheen under the light. I fastened the lowest button. Miles opened the car door. Noah. The last time someone called me by that title was 3 years ago. Let's go. The car started and pulled out of the underground garage. In the rearview mirror, the Lunatic Tower grew smaller and smaller. The lights on the 23rd floor of that building were still on. My wife was sitting inside, probably savoring the thrill of her just exercised absolute authority. Report. All hardware for Stellar Technologies is in place. 187 people have signed. Legal and financial procedures have 0 flaws. Miles's voice was steady. The silent command will be executed uniformly tonight at midnight. Core assets. Technical backups have been fully transferred. Patent authorization letters have been withdrawn. Customer data has been archived. Copies of key financial data have been stored. All traces have been wiped clean. I nodded. The city retreated outside the window. Building after building, a dense sprawl of neon lights. Lunatech, the pride of the Arthur family. Vivian's kingdom. She did not know that every brick and every pillar in that kingdom was mine. She thought she had kicked out a loser. In reality, she had pulled out the foundation with her own hands. Additionally, Miles flipped open his notebook. The evidence chain for Simon's embezzlement is complete. 3 fake channel payments, 2 shell companies, 7 forged contracts. Hold for now. Understood. We wait for him to jump out on his own. The car entered a building on the other side of the city. The lights on the top floor had just turned on. The brand new Stellar Technologies logo glowed with a soft white light in the night. The elevator went straight to the top floor. Inside the suite, there was only 1 table and 1 encrypted laptop. I sat down. On the screen was a complex organizational chart. All of Lunatech's core departments were marked in red. Ryan, Sophia, Chloe, and many more names. In beside every name was a pending command. I picked up my phone and dialed a number. It rang once before it was picked up. "Notify everyone," I said. "At midnight tonight, execute the homecoming protocol. Understood. By 8:30 tomorrow morning, I do not want to see any of our people still in any of Lunatech's core positions." I picked up the glass of cold water on the table and drank it all. The bottom of the glass hit the table with a crisp sound. Outside the window, the lights of the Lunatech tower were still on. But on the top floor of this building, the Stellar Technologies logo was brighter. 3 years. I shoved myself into the shell of an operations manager. Wore the most ordinary suits. Sat at the back during meetings, gave away all the credit, took on all the hard work. For what? For an agreement. The old man, Arthur, said, "Give Vivian 3 years. If she can use her own eyes to recognize who is truly standing by her side, then what?" And what was the result? The result was she demoted me to a specialist and gave my position to a dog that could not be fed. I answered with that single word, "All right." She chose this path herself 3 years earlier. Arthur's study. Rosewood desk, purple clay teapot, shelves full of antiques and books. The old man sat in the main seat in his 70s, the cypress bead bracelet on his wrist polished glossy after 30 years of turning. "Noah, I have reviewed all your terms." He poured the tea, his hand very steady. "The technology goes to me, the team goes to me, the patents go to me. You put up the capital and hold the controlling stake, but you stay behind the scenes and let Vivian sit in the president's seat." "Yes." "Why?" I watched the tea leaves tumble inside the cup in the hot water. "Because she is my wife." Arthur said nothing. "She wants to prove herself. I'm giving her a platform. Aren't you afraid she won't appreciate it?" "No." Arthur looked at me for a long time. "I'll add one more condition."
He raised a finger.
"A 3-year term. Within 3 years, you cannot reveal your identity or your equity stake. I want to see, without any halo around you, if she can tell who she should really trust. And if she can tell, then you two live your lives openly. And if she can't," Arthur turned the beads on his wrist, "then you do what you have to do." He fixed his eyes on me. "Don't let yourself be wronged just because her last name is Arthur." The contract was signed. An Aurora Capital entered with its technology patents and core team, holding 51% of Lunatech's equity, held in trust by Arthur Holdings. On the surface, Vivian was the glamorous President Vance. Beneath the surface, every line of code, every patent, every critical client relationship grew out of my hands. The Moonring system I spent 90 days building became Lunatech's flagship product. The Horizon Media contract I traded for, landing me in the hospital 3 times with stomach bleeding, became the strategic cooperation Vivian boasted about at board meetings. The people I personally trained, Ryan, Sophia, Chloe, became footnotes under her phrase, "the team's efforts." She got used to it. She got used to me always being there, always silent, always with my head bowed. She even got used to asking me at home, "Did you work overtime again today?" with that faint note of impatience in her voice. And then Simon came along, her university classmate, an outsider parachuted into the marketing department. He made beautiful PowerPoint slides. He drew flashy data charts. He constantly had the words, "Viv, don't you worry" on his lips. All the achievements I paved the road for and deliberately gave away became his credit. I waited 3 years. I waited until she demoted me to a specialist in front of everyone in that conference room. The agreement was over. The test was over. The answer was very clear. I picked up my phone to check the time. 2 in the morning. In 6 more hours, the doors of the Lunatech Tower would open on time. But when they opened, the inside would be empty. I found out what happened that night later. Chloe told me. Vivian went home after the meeting. We were still living under the same roof, but I did not go back that night. She went into the master bedroom, put on a face mask, and opened her tablet. Simon had sent her his operations department revitalization plan. The PowerPoint was 40 pages long, used 6 different color schemes, and painted a glorious future. She read it for half an hour, Then she dialed Simon's number. "I've read your proposal. Very insightful. Viv, don't you worry. Ini will not let down your trust. Lunatech in our hands will reach even greater heights." She slept. She slept very soundly. What she did not know was that in the study right next door, the room she treated like a storage closet, was my real command center for the past 3 years. The whiteboard was covered with Lunatech's full equity structure chart, a list of core personnel, a department relationship map, and a timeline covered in dense markings. The rightmost point on the timeline was marked with a single word: tomorrow. She was dreaming beautiful dreams of executives clapping and cheering. Ini was in the study, confirming things over the phone one by one. Ryan, in position. Sophia, in position. Chloe, in position. 187 people, all in position. At 3 in the morning, the last call was made. Ini walked out of the study and past the door of the master bedroom. In a faint nightlight glowed from under the door. She was used to sleeping with that nightlight on. She said it was a habit left from being afraid of the dark as a child. For 3 years I would get up every night to turn it off for her, because the light shining on her face for too long made her forehead sweat. Tonight, I did not turn it off. Starting tomorrow, whoever was going to take care of that light had nothing to do with me. Ini gently closed the front door, grabbed my car keys, and left the house. Monday morning, 8:30, Ini sat in my office on the top floor of Stellar Technologies. 3 screens were laid out in front of me. The left screen showed the company intranet. The middle one was an encrypted communication channel. The right screen showed the public area surveillance feed of the Lunatech tower, legally obtained because the security system permissions were in my hands. Miles walked in with a cup of black coffee. "It's starting," he said. I looked at the right screen. In the lobby of Lunatech Tower, Vivian walked in, stepping on her high heels. In a champagne-colored suit, in a diamond necklace. Her makeup was flawless. She passed the front desk. Only one intern was left at the desk, a ponytailed girl playing on her phone. Vivian frowned slightly but paid it no mind. She entered the elevator. The 23rd floor. The doors opened. Ini saw her stop. The open-plan office was completely empty. Over 100 workstations were powered off, chairs neatly pushed under desks. A few sheets of paper were blowing across the floor from the air conditioning. Her mouth moved. She was calling for someone. No one answered. She walked forward. The sound of her high heels was very loud because it was too quiet. Marketing department. Empty. Technical department. Empty. Sales department. Empty. She pushed open the door of the operations department. The filing cabinets were all empty. The desktops were so clean they could reflect her face. The old computer I had ordered was also gone, because the tech team took it away when they evacuated. The only thing left was a brand new office chair, the one Simon had specially bought last Friday, ready to sit in it and give orders. On the surveillance feed, Vivian stood in front of that empty chair, her shoulders trembling. Miles glanced at the screen. "How long do you want to watch?" "Stop watching!" I turned off the right screen. "Pull up today's work schedule." My phone rang. Noah, she had Simon check the internal email. The inbox is full of resignation letters, 187 of them, all sent at midnight. The system auto-approved them. Got it. She's started making calls. Ryan's phone is off. Sophia's line is busy. Leo answered his phone, but he said he already reported to the new company. Her emotional state. She's panicking. Chloe lowered her voice. Simon is even more panicked than she is. He tried to log into the internal management system just now and got a pop-up saying access denied. I hung up. Ini picked up the documents on my desk. Stellar Technologies had 3 meetings to hold today, 2 letters of intent to sign, and a tech department deployment plan waiting for my review. In a new company, in a new beginning. Ini did not have the time to stare at a building that was collapsing. 2 in the afternoon. Miles pushed the door open. Arthur has arrived at the Lunatech building. I put down my pen. He knows? Chloe must have informed him. He looked terrible when he arrived. He brought his personal lawyer and the CFO of Arthur Holdings. I said nothing. The old man, Arthur, had prepared for both outcomes 3 years ago. He had the original copy of that trust agreement, copies of all the patent documents, and the complete written record of the agreement we had made back then. He would lay all of it in front of Vivian. Then she would know. Inai spent 90 days building the Moonring system. Inai traded that Horizon Media contract for 3 bouts of stomach bleeding. Inai paved the Southside channels and deliberately let Simon pick the fruit. Every single word she used, the team's efforts, my brilliant leadership, the company's core competitiveness, had my name buried underneath every syllable. Miles stood there, waiting for my instructions. No need to interfere, I said. What she needs to know, the old man will tell her. What if she calls? Pick up. I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window. I waited for about an hour. My phone rang. The screen showed the caller ID, Vivian. I picked up. The first thing I heard on the other end was crying, not a loud wail, but the kind of sobbing where every breath shakes and she can barely catch air. Noah, it's you, isn't it? Knew I was wrong. She squeezed the words out one by one. Please come back. The company can't function without you. I can't function without you. I'll fire Simon. I'll give you the president's seat. I'll listen to everything you say. I waited for her to finish. Vivian. Her sobbing stopped for a moment. I had never called her by her full name like that before. All of Lunatech's core assets, including technology patents, databases, client resources, and the core team, were legally transferred last night. The receiving party is Stellar Technologies. The relevant legal documents will be in your inbox before 4 this afternoon. Silence on the other end. What is left for Lunatech is a clean shell, in no debt, and no core competitiveness whatsoever. This should meet your requirement for independent control. No, her voice was shaking. That's not what I meant. I don't want an empty shell. Noah, please, for the sake of our 3 years together. 3 years? I looked out the window. The Stellar Technologies building was 2 floors shorter than Lunatech, but from this angle, I could just see the rooftop of the Lunatech tower in the distance. 3 years ago, you told me you wanted to prove yourself. I gave you the platform, the technology, the team. I let you have all the spotlight. When you were basking in glory on stage, I was working overtime down below until 4 in the morning. You never said anything. Just because I didn't say it, you couldn't see it. She was speechless. President Vance. I used her corporate title. You chose this path yourself. I flipped my phone over, placed it face down on the desk, and sat there for a while. Miles knocked gently on the door. Noah, the 3 o'clock meeting. Coming. I stood up and adjusted my cuffs. I walked out of the office. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows at the end of the hallway, the sky was just right. Chloe's report came in at 9 in the evening. She used the encrypted channel. Arthur laid the trust agreement and the patent documents all out in front of Vivian. After she finished reading them, she cried in her office for 40 minutes. And Simon? He made an excuse to go to the restroom mid-conversation. Actually, he took the elevator straight to the first floor. After leaving the building, he made a phone call, not to anyone in the company. It was to an outside number. Chloe traced it. The number belongs to Summit Group. I put down my coffee cup. Summit Group. Victor, the owner of Summit Group. I remembered this man. 3 years ago, when Lunatech was just starting out, Victor had tried to acquire us. Arthur had turned him down. Later, he tried several times to block Lunatech's channels in the industry. Every time I used our technological barriers to push him back. Simon was connected to Victor. This was a thread I had not uncovered before.
What did he say on the call?
We didn't intercept the call content, but right after the call, Simon sent a text message. Plan has changed. Transfer the money now. All of it. I leaned back in my chair. Watch Simon closely. 24 hours. Already arranged. Also, what has Victor been up to lately? Preparing for an acquisition. The target is unspecified. Dig into it. I opened my notebook on the desk. Before, I had only thought Simon was a petty opportunist, falsifying channel expenses, taking kickbacks, stuffing his own pockets with Vivian's trust. But if Victor was standing behind him, this was no longer just about poaching people. Victor didn't want Simon. He wanted Lunatech. Simon was simply a key, in a key that Vivian had handed over with her own hands. The key was in his hand, but the lock had already been changed by me. Victor just didn't know it yet, which meant he still had another move to make. I uncapped my pen and wrote 2 words in the notebook. The next day, the situation at Lunatech was worse than I had predicted. The reports Chloe sent came in one after another. At 9:30, Vivian held an emergency management meeting. The only people present were Simon and 3 low-level supervisors. And at 10, she tried to contact the Moonring Systems tech maintenance team. There were 12 people on that team. Not a single one remained. The system backend's administrator password had been reset. The original permissions were in my hands. At 11, 3 core clients called, not to discuss business. They called to ask if something had happened to the company. The news spread fast. The industry circle was small. The collective resignation of 187 people yesterday had already spread everywhere by this morning. A few self-media accounts have started publishing articles. Miles handed me a tablet. The headline is, Lunatech emptied, overnight core team departs en masse. I glanced at it. Was this news released by us? No. Some reporters found the batch resignation filings on the corporate information platform and dug it out themselves. Then let it be. I went back to reading the letter of intent in my hand. Later that morning, the biggest advertising tech client Lunatech had, the purchasing director of Horizon Media, called us directly. Noah, I've heard a great deal about you. We've had a long cooperation with Lunatech, but given the current situation, the maintenance and iteration of the Moonring system have moved to you, correct? Stellar Technologies now possesses the full technical capabilities and intellectual property rights of the Moonring system, so regarding our contract, my business director will connect with you at 2 this afternoon. 10 minutes after hanging up, the second client's call came in. At 5 in the afternoon, Miles compiled the numbers. A total of 17 active client inquiries today. 9 of them were previously Lunatech core clients. How many signed? 4 letters of intent. 2 have already completed the process. I nodded. Don't rush the rest. Let them come on their own. 8 in the evening, another message from Chloe arrived. Vivian contacted 3 headhunting firms this afternoon to urgently fill the tech positions. The headhunters' feedback was, the team Noah took away is the gold standard in the industry. It will take at least 3 to 6 months to build a team of equivalent talent, and even then, they might not be willing to come. I turned off my phone. 3 to 6 months. Vivian couldn't wait 3 to 6 months. Without tech maintenance, the Moonring system couldn't last 2 weeks. Without the Moonring system, 80% of Lunatech's revenue stream would dry up. She was probably only starting to understand one thing now. The company she thought she had been running for 3 years was never hers to begin with. Every single screw under the chair she sat on was tightened by me. Now the screws were gone. The chair was still there. But if she sat down, it would collapse. Stellar Technologies didn't hold any kind of ceremony for its opening. No ribbon cutting, no media invited, no press release. But everyone in the industry who needed to know already knew. And at 10 in the morning, I held the first all-hands meeting in Stellar's small conference room. 187 people sat below. For 3 years, these people had followed me, laying foundations, writing code, running after clients, and pulling all-nighters at Lunatech. They knew who I was. They knew all the frustrations they had endured at Lunatech for those 3 years. No one was late. I stood at the front. I didn't use a PowerPoint. I didn't use a projector. Very simply, I said, Lunatech was someone else's shell. Stella is home. The room was silent for 2 seconds. Then Ryan started clapping. The applause was deafening. After the meeting, Miles handed me a document. Noah, Simon transferred 1.2 million from Lunatech's reserve account last night. Where did it go? An offshore account. The account holder is a shell company registered in Singapore. But tracing back the actual controller, it's a front under Victor's name. I took the document and flipped through it. He thinks he's taking advantage of the chaos to pocket some cash. And in reality, he's delivering his pledge of loyalty to Victor. I put the document down.
What Victor wants isn't that 1.2 million.
What he wants is the core data Simon has on Lunatech. Customer lists, unsigned contracts, channel resources. Does Simon have those things? No. Miles looked up at me. The core data was completely wiped in the transfer plan. All Simon has in his hands are those PowerPoints he made himself and some outdated basic reports. So Victor will sooner or later discover Simon is an empty shell.
Yes.
I said. That's when the real show will begin. I received an unexpected phone call. It was Arthur. Noah. The old man's voice sounded a decade older than it had 3 days ago. Uncle Arthur. He was silent for a few seconds. You did the right thing. I laid out the terms in front of her. She didn't listen. Arthur's tone was very low. This is the price she has to pay. But Noah, Lunatech is my life's work. It can't just rot away like this. Uncle Arthur, I won't touch the shell and the qualifications Lunatech has left. If you want to save it or keep it, that's your decision. You've taken the core things away. What use is the shell? That depends on what you want to use it for. He didn't speak again for a long moment. Noah, I'm going to ask you one question. Give me an honest answer. Go ahead. Do you still care about Vivian as a person? The sky outside the window was nearly dark. Uncle Arthur, I said. I don't want to answer that question right now. I sat in front of my desk for a long time. It wasn't until Miles came in to turn on the lights that I realized the sky had gone completely black. Thursday morning, in a piece of news exploded in every industry group chat. Horizon Media announces termination of all cooperation with Lunatech. Transfers contract to Stellar Technologies. Horizon Media was Lunatech's biggest client. The annual contract value was 23 million. The moment this news came out, 3 other clients followed with public announcements of cooperation changes. By noon, I had 6 letters of intent on my phone. All of them had run over from Lunatech. Noah. Frank, the president of Horizon Media, laughed on the phone. Let me be honest with you. We cooperated with Lunatech before. 80% of the reason was that your tech team was solid. Now that the team is with you, why would we sign with anyone else? You're too kind, Frank. I'm not being kind. It's the truth. Frank lowered his voice. On a side note, I've heard some whispers. Invicta from Summit Group seems to be eyeing Lunatech. I didn't respond. Be careful. Victor plays dirty. Thank you for the warning. After I hung up, I wrote down Frank's words in my notebook. 2 in the afternoon, Chloe sent over a video clip. It was from the surveillance feed inside the Lunatech building. Vivian was sitting in the president's office. Opposite her were 2 people in suits, advisors from a headhunting firm. The video had no sound, but I could see Vivian talking non-stop, and her gestures were large. Her expression was desperate. The 2 advisors were shaking their heads. One of them took out a piece of paper and handed it over. Vivian took it, looked at it for 2 seconds, and slapped it down on the table. Chloe, what's the word from the headhunters? The asking price is too high. They quoted $800,000 a year for a senior architect. Vivian thinks it's too expensive, but even if she agrees, the person can't start for another month. The key issue is that only you and Ryan truly understand the underlying architecture of the Moonring system. Anyone hired from outside will need at least 3 months just to get up to speed. What's the current state of the Moonring system? It's running, but no one is maintaining it. In a hotfix patch from last Friday wasn't pushed. 2 clients have already reported system lag. I did the math in my head. At most 10 days. In 10 days, without a professional team stepping in, the stability of the Moonring system would start to collapse on a large scale. By then, whatever small clients Lunatech still had would run away too. Vivian didn't have 10 days. One more thing, Chloe said. Simon went to the Summit Group headquarters this morning. He stayed for 2 hours. Who did he meet? Victor himself. I sat up straight. Contents. Nothing. Summit Group's security level is high. My people couldn't get in. But when Simon came out, his expression was extremely smug, smugger than when he was showing off in Lunatech meetings. A man whose hand had been completely emptied went to see Victor and came out looking smug. In there was only one possibility. Victor had given him new chips. Keep watching, I said. Track every single one of Simon's movements, every person he meets, every phone call he makes. Understood, I put down my phone, stood up and walked to the window. The distant Lunatech tower had a layer of orange tint under the setting sun. In Victor, in a piece of meat he hadn't been able to swallow 3 years ago. Now, he smelled blood and was circling back. This time, his appetite was probably not just for Lunatech. Vivian did something that surprised me. She held a press conference. The location was the multifunctional hall on the first floor of the Lunatech tower. Chloe sent a message half an hour early. She's going to publicly announce Lunatech's strategic transformation plan. The theme is asset-light operations, open ecosystem cooperation. My first reaction after reading that message was, this doesn't sound like her style. Who made the PowerPoint? Simon. I opened the live stream link. Vivian stood on stage, wearing a white suit, her hair pinned up, her lipstick a shade darker than usual. Her voice was fairly steady. Friends from the media, thank you all for taking the time to be here. Regarding some recent rumors online, I want to give an official response here. Lunatech has indeed experienced an internal organizational adjustment recently. Some employees chose to leave for personal career plans. This is a normal flow of talent and does not pose any impact on the company's core business. A normal flow of talent. 187 core personnel resigning collectively at the exact same moment in the early morning, and she called it a normal flow of talent. At the same time, Lunatech will launch Project Starcy, pivoting strategically around asset-light operations and open ecosystem cooperation. President Vance, a reporter raised a hand and interrupted her. May I ask, has the core technical team for the Moonring system already left entirely? How much longer can the system function normally? Vivian's fingers tightened around the edge of the podium for a moment. The Moonring system is operating stably. We have a robust technical reserve. President Vance, another reporter stood up. There is news that the departing team has joined a new company called Stellar Technologies in full, and that the founder of Stellar Technologies is your husband, Noah. Is this true? 3 seconds of silence on the stage. Vivian opened her mouth. Regarding Stellar Technologies, I am not in a position to comment, she said. But I can clearly state that Lunatech's core patents and technological achievements. President Vance. A third reporter's voice came from the back row. I have pulled up a public record of patent transfer filings here. The underlying architecture of the Moonring system, the intelligent data analysis engine, and the core algorithms of the cloud collaboration platform. All 3 patents list Noah as the inventor and completed the transfer of ownership this Monday. As the president, are you aware of this? The murmurs in the crowd grew louder. Vivian stood there. The light hit her face. Her foundation couldn't cover the reddening around her eyes. Simon rushed up the side of the stage, snatched the microphone. This reporter, regarding the patent issue, it involves trade secrets and legal procedures. We will provide a detailed explanation in a follow-up official announcement. Today's press conference ends here. The reporters did not cooperate. The sound of pressing questions rose from all directions. The live stream cut off with Simon's flustered back filling the screen. Ine turned off the tablet. Miles was standing next to me. Her press conference was her lifting a rock to smash her own foot, he said. She wasn't the one who lifted it. What do you mean? Simon suggested this press conference. I said, Vivian was set up on that stage and skinned alive in front of all the media. Who benefits? Miles thought for a moment. Lunatech's market credibility collapses faster. If someone wanted a low-price acquisition. Exactly. Victor. He's waiting for Lunatech to hit rock bottom before he swoops in to pick it up. I stood up. Simon is no longer just a greedy man. He's helping Victor set up the game. Then what do we do? No rush. Let the dust settle a bit. Over the next 2 days, things developed faster than I anticipated. Clips from the press conference live stream were edited and circulated. The headlines became more and more sensational. Lunatech president humiliated on stage. All tech patents belong to her husband. On Monday, the comment section of Lunatech's official social media account was overwhelmed. The top comment was only 1 sentence. So who does this company actually belong to? 6 words, as precise as a knife. Chloe said that Vivian hadn't shown up at the company for the past 2 days. She shut herself in the house and refused to see anyone. Simon, however, was there every day. He sat in Vivian's office under the title of acting president, bustling around non-stop. But he wasn't busy saving Lunatech. He's having one-on-one conversations with the few remaining mid-level managers at Lunatech. Chloe said, "The script is, the company is definitely getting acquired. Rather than passively waiting to change bosses, it's better to proactively side with the new boss. He's helping Victor absorb the remaining forces. Yes, he's even promising promotions and raises." I flipped through the reports in my hand. How much is left in Lunatech's reserve fund? Simon transferred 1.2 million last week, plus a few emergency PR expenses. He's reimbursed over the past 2 days. He's drained nearly 2 million in total. The remaining cash flow in the accounts can only sustain basic operations for about a month and a half. A month and a half. But the Moonring system couldn't last a month and a half. 5 days at most. In 5 days, widespread system failures, in mass client exodus, Lunatech would truly be nothing but an empty shell. By then, Victor would lay an acquisition agreement in front of Arthur. What would the old man choose? His life's work was better than letting it rot. He would probably sign. Then Lunatech would become an appendage of Summit Group. Simon would become the puppet CEO Victor installed inside. In a very elegant scheme. Noah, Miles said from the side, "Should we leak the evidence of Simon's embezzlement now?" "Not yet. If we wait any longer, Victor's acquisition terms will be on the table. I know." I put down the report. "Set up a meeting with someone for me." "Who?" "Victor." Miles was stunned for a moment. "Tell him Noah, founder of Stellar Technologies, would like to invite Victor for a cup of tea." Before the meeting with Victor, someone else came to see me first. Vivian, Tuesday afternoon, 3 o'clock. The front desk of Stellar Technologies Tower buzzed my intercom. "Noah, there is a lady in the lobby who says she's your wife. She wants to see you. She doesn't have an appointment." I looked at my schedule. I had a technical review meeting at 3:30. Send her up. 3 minutes later, she walked into my office. The door closed behind her. I looked up. She had lost weight. Not the kind of thin from a successful diet. The kind where she looked like she had been hollowed out from the inside. The dark circles under her eyes were covered with powder, but they still showed through. Her lips were chapped. Her hair was down. No makeup. This was the first time in 3 years I had seen her leave the house without makeup. "Noah." She stood at the door, her voice very soft. I pointed to the chair across from me. "Sit." She sat down. There were 2 glasses of water on the table, placed there by Miles earlier. She didn't touch them. I didn't touch mine either. "Speak." Her fingers were twisted together. "I didn't come here on behalf of the company." "Then on behalf of what?" "On behalf of myself." She raised her head and looked at me. In 3 years, she had rarely looked at me with this kind of expression. It wasn't the superior looking down on a subordinate kind of condescension, nor was it the wife looking at a husband kind of taking for granted. It was, I don't know how to describe it, like someone who suddenly realized the ground beneath their feet was fake, afraid to put any weight into each step. "I want to ask you a question," she said. "Ask." 3 years ago, why didn't you tell me?" I leaned back in my chair. "Tell you what?" "Tell you I wrote the Moonring system. Tell you that Summit Group contract was traded for with my life. Tell you that cup of hot tea that appeared on your desk on time every day was me telling the front desk to boil water half an hour early." Her fingers clenched tighter. "And if I had told you, what then? Would you have been grateful? Or would you have thought I was seeking credit, trying to show off in front of you, overshadowing you in your own company?" Her mouth opened, but no words came out. "Vivian, I know you," I said. "What you wanted wasn't a capable husband. What you wanted was a chance to prove that you were very capable. I gave you that chance. You just didn't use it well." Her tears fell. "Then what about now?" she asked. "You've proven your ability. You've taken your things back. What about me? What am I supposed to do? Are you asking me what you're supposed to do?" I don't know who else to ask. I looked at her for a moment. The moonring system at Lunatech has 3 days at most. 3 days from now, the system will crash. The rest of your clients will all flee. Simon is currently helping Victor set up the acquisition. Your reserve funds have been mostly drained by him. She suddenly looked up.
What?
Simon, from his first day at Lunatech, he was working with Victor. You think he's your classmate, your friend? He's a pawn Victor planted inside. Her face went white. No, he's my university classmate. We've known each other for 10 years. Known each other 10 years. Lied to you for 3. Her hands began to tremble. Then what about those channel fees? He said the Southside channels were negotiated by him. I paved those Southside channels. The only thing he did was slap his name on my credit and then eat 1.4 million in kickbacks from the middle. She stood up.
I'm going back.
I'm going to audit the accounts. You can't audit anything. I cut her off. The system administrator permissions are in my hands. The only person you can mobilize right now is that intern at the front desk. She sat back down, like someone had let all the air out of her. Noah, she looked up at me. Help me. On what grounds? On the grounds that I'm your wife. I looked at her. Vivian, I said. During that meeting when you demoted me to a specialist in front of everyone, did you ever consider how your husband might feel? Her tears wouldn't stop. When Simon told you to separate business from personal, you thought it made perfect sense. Now you come to me and say you're my wife. Do you think this makes any sense? She couldn't answer. Inai stood up. I have a meeting at 3:30. She stood up too. And as she reached the door, she turned around. Noah, if I can find the evidence against Simon on my own, would you be willing to give me another chance? I didn't answer. She left. After she was gone, Miles came in. Noah, Invicta responded. He agreed to meet. Tomorrow at 5 in the afternoon. He booked the Harmony Club Southside. Fine. Also, there's movement from Simon. Tell me. He just called Lunatech's remaining legal affairs manager. He asked him to prepare an asset valuation report, saying an investor wants to take a look. Investor? Victor must be preparing to make a formal offer. Did the legal manager agree? Yes, that person was recommended into the company by Simon last year. I picked up my teacup and took a sip. The timelines match up. Invicta first has Simon drain Lunatech's cash flow, then squeeze out the core talent, then manufacture a low asset valuation. Finally, acquire it for a bargain price. A flawless chain, Miles said. If you hadn't executed the homecoming plan ahead of time, once this chain ran its course, nothing would be left of Lunatech but scraps. I put down the cup. They missed one move.
Which move?
Me. Miles said nothing. Victor thinks Lunatech's core assets are still inside that building. He thinks that through Simon, he can scoop up the moonring system and the client resources in one go. But those things are all in Stella's hands now. Even if he buys Lunatech's shell, all he's buying is a pile of waste paper. So you arrange this meeting with him to let him know this fact. And once he knows, what will he do? Either back off or go crazy. I stood up and straightened my desk. Either way, the pieces are in my hands. What about Vivian? Let her investigate Simon. She'll find what she needs to find. You want her to dig it out herself? There are some things that if others tell her, she won't believe. I walked to the door. She has to fall on her own to know how slippery the road is. Chloe sent a message. After Vivian went back to Lunatech, she went straight to the finance room. She's been going through paper records for 3 hours. What did she find? She found 7 channel promotion fees Simon reimbursed, totaling 1.7 million. 5 of the receiving companies are shell companies. The registered address is a convenience store. Her reaction? She took photos and locked them in her drawer. She hasn't made a sound. I put down my phone. She had finally learned one thing, to gather evidence before losing her temper. 3 years ago, she wouldn't have done that. Wednesday afternoon, 5 o'clock, Harmony Club. Victor arrived before me. He was sitting in the main seat of the private room, a set of gongfu teaware laid out in front of him. He was a man in his early 50s, his hair combed impeccably, his suit custom-tailored, his cufflinks a limited edition from a vintage Swiss watchmaker. When he saw me walk in, he stood up. "Noah, I've heard a great deal about you." "Victor." I sat down across from him. He poured me a cup of tea. "To be honest, Noah, your recent move shook the entire industry. Taking an entire team away in a single night. The knife was fast, the incision clean. I admire that. You're too kind." "I'm not being kind." He held his cup and smiled. "I'm just curious. You laid low at Lunatech for 3 years. Your endurance is remarkable. What finally made you stop enduring?" "You should know better than I do." His smile faltered for half a second. "Oh, Simon is your man." The room went quiet for a moment. Victor set down his teacup. "Noah, where is this coming from?" "Victor, we're both businessmen. Too many detours waste time." I looked at him. "Simon entered Lunatech 3 years ago. You placed him there. He took kickbacks, cooked the books, sidelined Vivian, fabricated a low asset valuation. All of it followed your script. The final goal was to acquire Lunatech at the lowest possible cost." "Noah." Victor slowly turned his teacup with 2 fingers. "Even if everything you say is true, the current situation is Lunatech is finished. The shell isn't worth much. And so you didn't ask me out just to expose my hand, did you?" "No." "Then what?" "I came to tell you that your plan should stop here." He raised an eyebrow. "Lunatech's core assets, the patents, the data, the team are all in Stella's hands. Even if you buy Lunatech's shell, what you'll get is air." "Noah." Victor's smile faded. "You have your things. I have mine. Lunatech's brand, its qualifications, its industry access permits. Those things are not in your hands. With the shell, what content I fill it with is my business." "You can fill it."
But you won't fill it with a second moonring system.
"Who says I want a second moonring system?" He leaned forward slightly. "Noah, let's be open with each other. Stellar Technologies has 187 people. How much is the monthly overhead? Just the human cost alone is a significant number. You have the technology in your hands, but you don't have the channels, the brand, the industry qualifications. I have all of those things. Are you proposing a partnership? I'm proposing that you merge Stella into Summit Group." He tapped his finger on the table. "Your technology plus my channels, 1 + 1 is greater than 2. You take the CTO position. I stay CEO. In a win-win." I looked at him for 3 seconds. "Victor, your offer is using something I built myself to come work for you." "Noah, think bigger than that." "Not necessary." I stood up. He stood up too. "Noah, don't be too hasty to refuse." His tone shifted. The gentle tea ceremony demeanor was gone. "Stellar Technologies just started. Its foundation is unstable. Connections in the industry, supply chains, government relationships, these things can't be built in a day or 2. I can help you. Or I can choose not to help you. Is that a reminder or a threat?" "It's the truth." I picked up my car keys from the table. "Victor, let me give you the truth as well. Please, 3 years ago you couldn't swallow Lunatech. Now you can't swallow Stella either. It's not because you aren't ruthless enough. It's because you underestimated me." I turned around and pushed the door open. In the corridor, Miles was waiting at the elevator. Did it break down? Not a breakdown. We showed our hands. Will he make a move? He definitely will. The elevator arrived. The doors opened and closed. He said he has channels, brand, industry qualifications. I pressed the button for the first floor. That's not a lie. In the short term, he really can block me. "So what's your plan?" "Let him make the first move, and then he'll discover that among the cards in his hand, there isn't a single one I haven't already anticipated." Thursday, early morning. Chloe's phone call woke me from a light sleep. "Noah, something's happened. Tell me." "Simon stole the originals of Lunatech's last batch of client contracts. All the stamped originals from the clients. Contracts with an unexecuted value of roughly 40 million. I sat up. "When did this happen?" "Tonight at 11. He used his own access card to enter the archives room. The permissions Vivian gave him were never revoked. Where were the contracts taken? Unsure. But after he left the building, he got straight into a black commercial van. The license plate is registered under Summit Group's name. My hand tightened around the phone. Contract originals. With those, Victor could go directly to those clients, holding the originals and asserting claims, intercepting whatever business Lunatech still had. And worse, if he tampered with the contract terms and then took them to be signed, that was no longer just a business issue. It was a crime. Noah, Chloe was waiting for my instructions. How long has Simon been inside Summit Group? He went in and hasn't come out yet. I checked the time, 2 in the morning. Call Miles. 15 minutes later, I was at Stellar Technologies. Miles had already pulled up all the relevant data. 3 of those contracts involve clients that Stellar Technologies is currently in the process of taking over. He said, if Victor takes the originals and goes to renegotiate with the clients might be put in a difficult position between 2 parties. They won't be, I said. There's a clause in the technical terms of those 3 contracts. All customized services are to be undertaken by the original technical team. The team is at Stellar. Even if he has the contracts, he can't execute them. But what about the remaining 14 contracts? Those are standardized product contracts that don't involve the tech team. If Victor impersonates Lunatech to deliver, that's exactly his goal. I cut him off. He doesn't care if the contracts can be perfectly executed. What he wants is to create a fait accompli, to make the market believe that Summit Group has already taken over Lunatech's client resources. A preemptive strike. Yes, once the cooked rice is in the bowl, Arthur will have no choice but to accept the acquisition terms. I walked to the window. The city lights were sparse at this late hour, but the Summit Group headquarters building was still lit. Chloe, does Vivian know the contracts were stolen? No, she didn't go to the company tonight. Send this news to her. Noah, do it. Understood. I hung up with Chloe and looked at Miles. Prepare 2 plans. Go ahead. First plan. If Vivian calls the police after getting the news, we cooperate by providing the full evidence chain of Simon's embezzlement and let the police intervene directly. No matter how many connections Victor has, he wouldn't dare to cover for Simon on a criminal case. And the second plan, if she doesn't call the police. I paused. If she didn't call the police, if she hesitated again, if she softened her heart again, if she was persuaded by Simon's sweet talk once more, then it would mean 3 years of time had taught her nothing. If she doesn't call the police, I will. Miles nodded. 4 in the morning. My phone screen lit up. It wasn't Chloe. It was Vivian. She sent a message. In no words, just a picture. It was a photo of the 7 shell company reimbursement receipts she had dug up. Underneath, she added a line of text. I've already called the police. I stared at that line for a few seconds. Then another message came. I'm sorry. And another. Noah, Simon stole all the contract originals tonight. Chloe told me. I've already added this to my statement with the police. And another. I don't know if you're still willing to help me, but this time, whether you help or not, I won't let anyone. The message cut off mid-sentence. More than 10 seconds passed. The final message. Walk all over you again. I put my phone down. Outside the window, the sky was starting to lighten a little. At 9 in the morning, when I arrived at Stellar, Miles was already waiting at the door. The police intervened at 5 in the morning. Simon was stopped in the parking lot of Summit Group headquarters. All 17 contract originals were found in the vehicle. And Victor, he didn't show his face. Summit Group's side is claiming no knowledge. But after Simon got to the station, he emotionally collapsed and voluntarily confessed some details of his cooperation with Victor, including the flow of funds for the fake channel payments. I pushed open my office door. Victor will send his lawyers to bail him out. Already done. Summit Group's legal team was at the station by 6:30. The problem is, Simon opened his mouth too fast. The critical information is already in the official record. I sat down behind my desk. Where are we with Sophia? She worked through the night and compiled a complete financial evidence package. Every abnormal transaction Simon handled at Lunatech, the shell company transfer records, the fake contracts. What's the total amount? Including the assessed value of the stolen contracts, the amount involved is over 5 million. More than enough. I nodded. In my phone rang. Unfamiliar number. Inai picked up. Noah. The voice on the other end was very steady. This is Victor. Victor. In so early. What happened yesterday was a misunderstanding. Simon is someone who doesn't know his limits, and my dealings with him are purely routine business. Inai had absolutely no knowledge of him stealing the contracts. You didn't call me just to distance yourself, did you, Victor? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Noah, you're a smart man. Simon is done. Lunatech is done. The only thing in this industry worth investing in now is Stellar. You can reconsider my proposal from yesterday. I've considered it. Oh! Not interested. Noah. Victor, your man just got taken away for stealing commercial documents, and you turn around and talk to me about cooperation. Do you think I'm brainless, or do you think your own face is particularly thick? 5 seconds of silence on the other end. Noah, your wings are strong now. Victor's tone dropped. But this industry doesn't run on technology alone. I'll give you 3 days. After 3 days, you'll start receiving some rather unpleasant news. Thanks for the warning. Don't mention it. I placed my phone on the desk. Miles had listened to the entire call from the side. He's going to make his move. Yes. Are you worried? No. I pulled open a drawer and took out a folder. Because there's one thing he doesn't know. What's that? I opened the folder. It was an equity penetration report, the equity structure chart of Summit Group, layer by layer, traced all the way up, ultimately stopping at a single name. Summit Group's largest institutional investor is Aurora Capital. Miles's eyebrows moved. The actual controller of Aurora Capital is me. This story had to be told from the beginning. Stellar Technologies was my technology platform, but Aurora Capital was my real ace in the hole. 6 years ago, I used my first bucket of gold to establish Aurora Capital. It did no real estate, no financial leverage, only invested in tech companies. In 6 years, Aurora invested in 23 companies and exited from 11. The total assets under management reached 1.2 billion. Summit Group brought in Aurora Capital during its Series B funding round 3 years ago. Aurora holds 19% of Summit Group's shares. It is the largest institutional shareholder. Victor knew about Aurora Capital, but he didn't know who was behind Aurora, because the actual controller information of Aurora was hidden behind 3 layers of offshore structures. The legal representative on the surface was a relative of Miles. When I chose to lay low at Lunatech 3 years ago, I had already hidden this card well. I had no intention of using it. But Victor forced me to play it. Noah, he said 3 days. Miles closed the folder. What could he do within those 3 days? Suppress Stellar's supply chain, poach my clients, mobilize his industry connections to put pressure on me. Then our move. We wait until the 3rd day. Why? Because on the 3rd day he'll find out that the next round of capital injection for his most relied upon funding is due this week, and Aurora Capital happens to have the right to decide whether that money arrives or not. Miles stood there. After 2 seconds, you're saying, if Aurora suspends the funding injection into Summit Group, the 2 projects Victor is currently expanding will both bleed out simultaneously. He will. He will be in extreme discomfort, and then he'll know. It's you. Yes, I closed the notebook. Let him know. 3 days later, Sunday afternoon, Victor's call came again. This time, his voice was different. Noah, an Aurora Capital's funding injection. It's been suspended. Yes. I know. Complete silence on the other end for 8 full seconds. It's you. Victor's reaction is very fast. You, in Aurora Capital, is yours. To be precise, I founded it 6 years ago. When you did your due diligence for your Series B 3 years ago, you probably checked Aurora's background, but you couldn't find me. Because I didn't want you to find me. Victor's breathing grew heavier. Noah, who exactly are you? Someone you shouldn't have messed with. I put down the phone. The office lights were on. Outside the window, the city lights were just starting to glow. Miles pushed the door open. Victor's 2 ongoing projects are already showing rumors of funding gaps. 4 calls have come in from his partners asking about the situation. Let the dust settle for one more day. Victor did something I didn't expect. He held a press conference, not at Summit Group's headquarters, at a side hall of an industry forum borrowing someone else's venue. In there was only one item on the agenda, announcing that Summit Group would officially acquire Lunatech under the name of a strategic partnership. Acquisition price, $200 million. On the surface, it looked like a decent number, but Lunatech's valuation at its peak was $1.5 billion. $200 million wasn't even spare change. Chloe sent a message immediately. Arthur knows. He had his lawyer check the details of this acquisition proposal. He found a clause Victor embedded inside the acquisition agreement. What clause? After the acquisition is complete, the original president Vivian must remain as CEO for no less than 3 years and is prohibited from engaging with any competing companies during her tenure. He wants to lock Vivian inside as a figurehead. Arthur's reaction? He slammed the table, called Victor a bandit taking advantage of a crisis. And Vivian? She wrote 4 words on the signature page, refused to sign. I put down my phone. She was learning. In slow, but she was learning. Vivian came to Stella. This time she didn't go through the front desk. She called my phone directly. I didn't come here to beg for your help. She stood in my office, looking a little better than the last time she was here. The dark circles were still there, but her eyes were different. I rejected Victor's acquisition proposal.
I know.
But Lunatech can't hold on any longer. The Moonring system started having massive failures yesterday. The last 3 clients sent termination notices. You came to tell me this. I came to tell you. She cut me off. Lunatech's shell. I don't want it anymore. I looked at her. The brand, the qualifications, the industry access permits. I'll have my father talk to your lawyers. What's yours is yours. I won't block it. And then what? Then I start over on my own, from scratch. Her voice was shaking, but she wasn't crying. Noah, you were right. Every screw under the chair I used to sit on was yours. I had no right to sit in it and despise the person who tightened the screws. Vivian. I'm not asking for your forgiveness. And I'm not asking you to come back. Just want to ask one thing. She looked at me. After you take Lunatech's shell, can you preserve that brand? It's my father's life's work. I looked at her for a long time. Yes. She nodded. She turned to leave. Vivian. She stopped. Simon's case. You need to see it through to the end. I know. Victor won't let things go easily. I know. Be careful. She stood in the doorway, her back to me. You too. The door closed. The annual industry summit. This summit happened once a year. Every company in the industry's top 50 would attend. Stellar Technologies made its first independent appearance. Miles had set up the booth a week in advance. It wasn't big, but every piece of content on the display boards was solid technical specifications and real client case studies. During the opening ceremony, the organizers announced the annual industry rankings. Number 1 in comprehensive strength for technology service enterprises, Stellar Technologies. All eyes in the venue turned to our booth in unison. 3 months ago, Stellar Technologies didn't even exist. Now it was sitting at the top of the industry. Not because I paid for the ranking. Not because I hired people to inflate the numbers. It was because the Moonring system's client retention rate, technical stability, and service response speed crushed the industry's number 2 in every single metric. The number 2 was Summit Group. Invicta was sitting in the second row of the VIP section. Ine was in the first row. The host invited me on stage to give the keynote speech. Ine stood on stage, facing more than 300 faces. Hello everyone, I am Noah, founder of Stellar Technologies. People were murmuring below. Most of them only knew me as the former operations manager at Lunatech and the husband of President Vance. Ine didn't use a PowerPoint. 3 months ago, someone asked me, Noah, you were an operations manager at Lunatech for 3 years. You suddenly stepped out to go solo. What gives you the right? The room fell silent. Today I will answer that question. I took a flash drive from my pocket and plugged it into the podium computer. In a diagram popped up on the screen, the complete architecture map of the moonring system. Commit records for every single line of code. Timestamps precise to the second. Submitted by Noah. The moonring system, from its first line of code to the final product architecture, was entirely designed and led in development by me. It took 90 days. This is the complete log from the version management system. It can be verified by any third-party institution. The murmurs below turned into low exclamations. Inni switched to the next page, the patent certificate for the intelligent data analysis engine. Inventor, Noah. The patent certificate for the core algorithms of the cloud collaboration platform. Inventor, Noah. 7 core patents in total, every single one crystal clear. These 7 patents were the technological cornerstone of every product line at Lunatech for the past 3 years. Their ownership now resides with Stellar Technologies. This is not a transfer. This is a return, because they were always mine. Not a single person among the 300 in the room was speaking. Some people said I was just an operations manager at Lunatech. I turned off the screen. Yes, I was. Inni chose to be a manager because I wanted to give the stage to my partner. But my partner chose someone else. And so I took back what was mine. Everyone, I am not standing here today to air grievances. I am here to tell this industry that Stellar Technologies is not a splinter group of Lunatech. It is not a makeshift setup thrown together by a job-hopping team. It is a legitimate company with full independent intellectual property, 187 core personnel, and 23 technological reserves. From now on, please address me as Noah. You don't need to call me Vivian's husband anymore. As I stepped down from the stage, the applause lasted for a full 15 seconds. Victor sat in the second row, perfectly still. The assistant beside him leaned over and said something. Victor's lips moved. Inni read his lips. What he said was, "It's over." The second day of the summit, in an even bigger piece of news, exploded through the industry. Identity of Aurora Capital's actual controller revealed. Noah, founder of Stellar Technologies. I wasn't the one who released this news. Victor was. He thought that revealing me as the actual controller of Aurora would make the industry question me for using capital advantages to crush competitors. But the effect was the exact opposite. Noah, founder of Stellar Technologies, actual controller of Aurora Capital, cumulative assets under management of 1.2 billion, lived undercover in the industry for 3 years as an operations manager in anonymity. The media went crazy, not the crazy of negative press, the crazy of fascination, worship, and frenzied pursuit. The invisible titan reveals his cards after being demoted to a specialist by his wife. That kind of headline carried its own viral momentum. By 10 in the morning, my phone was exploding. 7 media outlets requesting interviews, 3 investment firms submitting cooperation proposals, 2 industry association chairmen calling personally to send their regards. It didn't pick up a single one. InMiles blocked all the calls for me. Chloe sent a message. Victor lifted a rock and smashed his own foot with it. In there was one thing he didn't calculate before releasing the news. Aurora is Summit Group's largest institutional shareholder. Once the news was out, Summit Group's other shareholders started to panic. They're afraid you'll use your Aurora shareholder status to make a move against Summit Group. They should be afraid. Victor held 3 emergency shareholder reassurance meetings this morning. But 2 minority shareholders are already privately looking for lawyers to understand the exit clauses. I put down my phone. Victor wanted to fight me with an information war, but he forgot. The premise of an information war is that the information you have doesn't hurt yourself. And the information that Noah is the actual controller of Aurora hurt him far more than it hurt me. Because it meant his lifeline, Summit Group's largest institutional funding, was in my hand. 2 in the afternoon. InMiles pushed the door open. Summit Group's number 3 and number 7 shareholders have jointly sent a letter to Aurora. They're requesting an extraordinary general meeting to discuss issues regarding Victor's management capability and strategic direction. How long until it can be held? According to the bylaws, 7 business days. Enough. I stood up and walked to the window. The distant Summit Group tower reflected harsh sunlight. Invicta was sitting inside, probably frantically making calls to rally support. But what he didn't know was that the investor relations of shareholders number 3 and number 7 had been maintained by Aurora's market team as early as half a year ago. This game didn't start being played today. It started the very first day I walked into Lunatech 3 years ago. After the notice for the extraordinary general meeting was issued, Victor made one last struggle. He had his legal team send a strongly worded letter to Aurora Capital. Given that Aurora Capital's actual controller, Noah, has a direct competitive relationship with Summit Group, Aurora is required to recuse itself from voting at this general meeting. He thought this move could stall me. But he didn't know that there was an anti-dilution clause in Aurora Capital's investment agreement. Any motion attempting to limit Aurora's voting rights required the approval of more than 2/3 of all shareholders, and he couldn't even gather half the votes because those minority shareholders had already voted with their feet. The general meeting was held in the 3rd floor conference room of the Summit Group headquarters. Inni did not attend in person. Miles represented Aurora at the meeting. The meeting lasted only 40 minutes. The result? Invicta was removed from the position of CEO. The Summit Group Board of Directors was reorganized. The new interim management committee was chaired by an independent director nominated by Aurora Capital. When the news came out, I was in Stella's technology lab watching Ryan's new product demo. Miles's call came through. It's over. Invicta slammed the table on the spot and was escorted out of the conference room by security. His personal belongings have already been moved out of the CEO's office. What about his shares? Locked. According to the non-compete clause in the investment agreement, he is barred from selling his shares for 2 years after his dismissal and barred from engaging in any competition within the same industry. In 2 years, what Summit Group would become under the new management was a story for another day. But Victor could never make waves again. Inni put down my phone. Ryan poked his head out from behind the testing bench. Noah, the demo is finished. Do you want to see the results?
Yes?
Life went on. The company went on. After Victor was ousted, the industry landscape reshuffled. But he was not willing to accept it. 3 days after being removed as CEO, he did something. He packaged up the core client data of Summit Group that he still possessed and privately shopped it to an overseas competitor. Miles got the news from Summit Group's new management. Overseas, a company in Southeast Asia called Starbridge. Victor has old ties with their founder. What is he trying to do? 2 possibilities. 1. Cash out. 2. Use Starbridge to stir up trouble in the domestic market and annoy Stella. Does Starbridge have a domestic license? They're applying for one. If Victor provides the client resources and channel connections, the approval speed will be much faster. I put down my pen. This man, he still wouldn't stop stirring even after being thrown off the stage. Noah, Inni recommend we hand the evidence of his trade secret leakage directly to Summit Group's new management and pursue legal channels. Not enough. Not enough? Legal channels are too slow. By the time the lawsuit is over, Starbridge will already have its license. Then what do you suggest? Remove the fuel from under the pot? I picked up my phone and scrolled to a number. Dialed it. It rang 3 times. Hello, Lynn. This is Noah. Last time you said you wanted to do an in-depth feature on the industry. I have some material here. Would you be interested? The voice on the other end was suddenly excited. Noah.
What kind of material?
A story about a former CEO ousted by his board, selling core client data to an overseas company during his non-compete period. Noah, if this is true, this is the biggest industry story of the year. I'll give you the evidence. You verify it yourself. Once you verify it, how you write it is up to you. Noah. 1 condition. Name it. Before the story is published, do not reveal the source. Understood. Miles looked at me. A media war? What Victor cares about most is his face. In a business loss, he can stomach. But if the whole industry knows he violated his non-compete agreement during his restricted period, he won't even keep his last shred of dignity. And Starbridge? Once the news is out, Starbridge's license application will face heavy scrutiny from regulators in a company willing to receive client data from questionable sources. Do you think the approval department will easily let it through? Miles thought about it. No, two birds with one stone. The story went live 3 days later. The headline was restrained. The content was lethal. Former Summit Group CEO Victor suspected of non-compete violation, core client data feared leaked overseas. The article used 4,000 words to meticulously detail Victor's entire process, from the Lunatech incident to his ousting from Summit Group to his connection with Starbridge. Every piece of information had a corresponding screenshot of written evidence. In below, the journalist's name was a single line. All materials in this article have been independently verified by a third party. 4 hours after the article went live, it hit 200,000 views. Victor's phone was flooded, not with calls for cooperation. Calls asking him if he had lost his mind. 3 industry partners announced the same day they were suspending all business dealings with Victor personally. Summit Group's new management issued a statement. Any personal actions by Mr. Victor are unrelated to Summit Group. The group reserves the right to pursue legal accountability. One sentence, cut off cleanly and completely. Chloe sent Vivian's reaction. She read the article. After finishing it, she sat in front of her desk and stared into space for a long time. Then she called her father and said one thing, "Dad, Innie was blind before." I didn't reply. In Starbridge's domestic license application was rejected. Reason given, insignificant doubts regarding data source compliance. Further review is required. Victor's last escape route was cut off. 8 in the evening. Innie was tidying up documents in my office. My phone vibrated. Unfamiliar number. Noah, you win. But don't forget, during those 3 years you were at Lunatech, your own wife treated you that way, and now you're helping her preserve her brand. Are you a saint or an idiot? In Victor. I looked at it for 3 seconds. After Victor's chapter came to a close, there was still one person whose ending had not yet fallen into place. In Simon, the police investigation went smoother than I expected. All of his illegal activities during his time at Lunatech, fake reimbursements, shell company embezzlement, theft of contract originals, had a complete chain of evidence, irrefutable. The prosecutor added a charge of embezzlement by duty. The total amount involved was 5.4 million. Innie didn't go to the court hearing. Chloe attended on my behalf. She recorded the key points of the trial and sent them to me. Simon cried in the defendant's seat. His defense lawyer gave the final statement. The defendant expresses deep remorse for his actions. The judge did not hand down a sentence in court, but Chloe said, based on the judge's line of questioning, the sentence would not be light. The verdict came down a week later. Simon, embezzlement by duty, sentenced to 4 years and 6 months in prison. In fine of 800,000, the illicit funds were fully recovered. The news reached Lunatech, which had now been renamed. Arthur had transferred the shell and qualifications entirely to Stella. The brand was preserved as a sub-brand under Stella. Vivian didn't say a single word on any social platform, but Chloe told me that she went home that day, gathered every single thing Simon had ever given her, the laptop, the cosmetics, a birthday necklace, loaded them into a box and drove to the dump. Not a single item was left. Stellar Technologies had been established for 6 months. The data came in. When Miles placed the quarterly report on my desk, I thought he was joking. Revenue, 87 million for the past quarter. Client retention rate, 97%. New clients signed, 43. Team size expanded from 187 to 320. After the Moonring system version 2.0 went live, the industry evaluation gave it a score of 98 out of 100. Innie finished reading the report and closed the folder. Noah, Miles said, "There's something that needs your decision." "What is it?" "The Industry Association has invited Stella to serve as the host and organizer for next year's annual summit." "Who used to host it?" "Summit Group. They hosted it for 5 years in a row. This year they don't have the qualification, except 2 in the afternoon." Innie poured a glass of water in the Stella Technologies lounge. Outside the window was the city skyline. Stella Tower had relocated 3 months ago to a new site, 32 floors. The whole floor was our own. In the distance, the Lunatech tower was 2 floors shorter, but the logo on the rooftop was still there. The 2 words Stellar Lunatech were lined up together, reflecting the sunlight. This was Arthur's only request, to keep the name Lunatech. Inai agreed. Not because of Vivian. It was because of what the old man said back then. Don't let yourself be wronged just because her last name is Arthur. He never wronged me. Inai would not wrong him. My phone rang. Noah, the proof of concept for Moonring 3.0 passed. How long did it take? 4 times faster than 2.0. Memory usage reduced by 60%. Run the full test next month. Got it! I stood by the window and finished that glass of water. 6 months ago, when I walked out of the Lunatech conference room, I was wearing an old grey suit. In now, that suit was hung on the coat rack in my office. Not washed, not thrown away. It still carried the faint smell of disinfectant from the air conditioning that day in the conference room. Inai looked at it sometimes. As a reminder, never let anyone have the chance to put that suit back on me again. Victor's ending came faster than I anticipated. After the non-compete violation was exposed by the media, he tried to contact a few old connections to turn things around. Not a single person took his call. That's how the business world is. When you're winning, everyone is your friend. When you lose, even the front desk won't pour you water. 3 months later, Summit Group's new management formally filed a civil lawsuit in court, suing Victor for illegally leaking trade secrets during his non-compete period, claiming $30 million in damages. Victor hired 3 legal teams and fought the lawsuit for 4 months. Ultimately, the court ordered a compensation of $21 million and barred Victor from engaging in any technology industry-related work for 5 years. $21 million plus the shrinking value of his locked shares. His personal assets shrank from a peak of $400 million to less than $30 million. Simon was in prison. 4 years and 6 months. His wife filed for divorce the day after the verdict came down. Victor disappeared after the lawsuit ended. Some said he went to Southeast Asia. Some said he opened a small supermarket in his hometown. Inai didn't care. What I cared about was Stellar Technologies next quarter, in Stellar's first anniversary. The company threw a low-key celebration dinner at the 5-star hotel in the financial district. All 187 founding employees were there. Ryan drank 3 glasses of red wine and dragged Sophia up to sing an off-key song. Chloe wore a red dress she never wore before and danced a dance with a young man from the finance department. Miles stood in the corner, nursing a single glass of water from beginning to end. Inai stood on the stage. Inai didn't use a microphone. 1 year ago today, I held my first all-hands meeting in an empty office. Inai said, "Stellar is home." The room fell quiet. Today, Stellar Technologies has a market valuation of $1.5 billion. The Moonring system covers 37% of the domestic market share. We have 320 people. Ryan started clapping from the front row, but I waved my hand. But these numbers are not important. What's important is that every single one of you at the hardest moment chose to come with me. Without hesitation, in no conditions. 1 phone call and you came. This trust is worth more than $1.5 billion. The applause was deafening. Inai stepped off the stage after speaking. Miles handed me a glass of water. "Noah, Arthur is here." I turned around. The old man was standing at the entrance of the banquet hall, leaning on his cane. He had lost a lot of weight. His hair was whiter than it had been a year ago, but he stood very straight. Inai walked over. "Uncle Arthur." He looked around at the lively crowd in the banquet hall. "Noah." His voice was a little hoarse. "You did it."
I did what you asked.
"The brand is preserved, not the brand." He fixed his eyes on me. "I'm talking about you as a person. You did it." He reached out and patted my shoulder. His hand was heavy. 3 years ago, I asked you to endure a grievance. Looking back now, the one who endured the grievance wasn't you. It was my disappointing daughter, Uncle Arthur. She's outside. I was taken aback for a moment. Refused to come in. Said she's afraid of embarrassing you. When I walked out of the banquet hall, she was standing at the end of the corridor, her back against the window. both hands stuffed in the pockets of her coat. The deep autumn night wind blew in from both ends of the hallway. She wasn't wearing much. When she saw me come out, she straightened her body. Noah, Vivian, I walked up to her. 3 steps apart, 1 year since I had seen her. She had changed her hairstyle, much shorter, almost no makeup on her face, but she looked better than a year ago, in not the glossy, radiant kind of sitting in the president's chair. It was a settled, grounded kind of good. "What are you doing now?" "Working in operations at a startup," she said. "A very small company. 12 people. Operations? Yes, the most basic kind. Organizing data, interfacing with clients, writing weekly reports." I looked at her. "You, a young lady of the Arthur family, working as a junior operations staffer. You, the boss of Aurora Capital, worked as an operations manager at Lunatech for 3 years. Why can't I work at the basic level?" I said nothing. "Noah," her voice lowered, "I've thought a lot this past year. Before, it wasn't that I didn't know your worth. Innie just got used to it, used to you always being there, always silent. Always going to bed later and waking up earlier than me. Used to it to the point where I took all of it for granted." She pulled her hands out of her pockets. She was holding a piece of paper. "This is the first operational report I wrote at the new company." She handed the paper over. "It's terribly written." My boss bounced it back 3 times. The 3rd time it came back, I sat at my desk for half an hour, and I suddenly remembered those monthly reports you submitted at Lunatech, the ones I dismissed as too stable and completely unsurprising. She took a breath. "I went home that day and dug out your old reports and read them all night. Every single one was solid. Data analysis, countermeasures. Not a word wasted. How could I not see it back then?" The wind rushed down the corridor. In a few strands of her hair were blown across her face. "Noah, yes. I don't deserve to call you my husband anymore, but I want to say one thing to you." "Say it." "Thank you for not harming me when I was at my blindest. You could have easily not left that shell, not preserved that brand. But you did. I left that for your father."
"I know."
"But no matter who it was for, you didn't step on me when I was at my lowest. The person I owe the biggest apology to in this life is you." Her eyes reddened, but she didn't let the tears fall. "Before, I cried because I was afraid of losing, and now I don't cry anymore because I know that some things weren't lost by me. They were things I never truly possessed, things I pushed away with my own hands." The lights in the hallway shone on her face, 3 steps apart, not far, not close. "Vivian, yes. You chose this path yourself." She nodded. "I know. But the road is still long." She looked up at me. I took 1 step forward. 3 steps became 2. "There's still time." 2 years later, Stellar Technologies completed its Series B funding round. Valuation of $5 billion. The Moonring System 3.0 won the National Science and Technology Progress Award. When I stood on the podium, there were 320 Stellar employees sitting below. Ryan was in the first row. He whistled. Miles was in the very back, still holding that glass of water. Chloe didn't come. She had left Stellar last year to start her own human resources company. Before she left, she told me, "Noah, working for you for 3 years was an immense gain. But I want to try being my own boss." I said, "Okay." Arthur was sitting in the VIP section. He was 80 this year. The cane had been replaced by a wheelchair, but his spirit was still good. In seeing me go on stage, he patted the armrest of his wheelchair. I stepped down after receiving the award. Passing by the VIP section, Arthur pulled me over. "Noah, Uncle Arthur, that girl's company crossed 50 million in revenue this year."
I know.
"She didn't take a single penny from you."
"I know."
"Last month, she asked me if she could do a technology collaboration between her company and Stellar. She said she wants to rely on her own ability to do business with you, fair and square." I looked at the old man. "Are you here as her lobbyist?" "I'm here to tell you, that girl, she's finally grown up." After the banquet ended, I sat alone on the top floor of Stellar Tower. 32nd floor, the city sprawled beneath my feet in a vast sea of lights. In the distance, A small, unremarkable building had a single light on its top floor. That was Vivian's new company. She had named the company something Arctech. She never explained what the name meant. But I knew. My phone rang. Vivian. Only a picture. It was the cover of a cooperation proposal. Arctech Stellar Technologies Technical Service Cooperation Framework Agreement. Draft. Below it was a line of text. Noah, may I please ask for the appointment number of your company's business department? Our side will submit the application according to formal procedures. I looked at it for a long time. Inai replied with 3 words, had dinner yet? 10 seconds passed on the other end. Not yet. There's a new noodle shop that opened downstairs near the office. My treat. Okay, I put down my phone. Inai stood up, and as I reached the elevator, I saw my reflection in the glass door, in a custom-made dark black suit, in a sharp, straight shoulder line. 5 years ago, I walked into Lunatech wearing a shabby grey suit, pressing myself into an inconspicuous screw. 3 years later, I walked out in this black suit and took back everything that was mine. Another 2 years in now, I was going downstairs to the noodle shop to eat a bowl of noodles with a woman who had once stepped on me, then thrown herself to the ground with her own hands, and finally picked herself back up. The elevator arrived. The doors opened. Inai walked in. The numbers ticked down one by one. Outside, the night was good. The lights of the noodle shop should still be on. The noodle shop was very small. 8 tables. The owner was from Sichuan. The signature dish was a bowl of spicy dan dan noodles. When Vivian arrived, I had already ordered 2 bowls of noodles, 1 spicy, 1 clear broth. She sat down. How did you know I wanted the clear broth? Your stomach is bad. Last time you ate spicy food, your stomach hurt until 3 in the morning. She paused for a moment. That was 4 years ago. Yes, the noodles were served, steaming hot. She stirred them with her chopsticks but didn't rush to eat. Noah. Yes. Arctech's revenue crossed 50 million this year. By the end of the year, it might hit 60 million. I know. Your father told me. I didn't use a single penny of yours. That's the 3rd time you've said that. I want you to know, I'm not here to take advantage of you. The cooperation proposal is real. The client management module we newly developed has complementarity with the Moonring system. It's also good for Stella. I know. Ryan showed me your product documentation last week. He said the technical architecture is well done. Really? Since when has Ryan ever lied? She lowered her head, a faint smile tugging at the corner of her mouth. In there weren't many people in the shop. In a young couple was taking photos in the corner. In a delivery driver was waiting for his order nearby. In a very ordinary night, after finishing the noodles, we walked out together. The wind on the street carried the chill of early winter. Noah. Yes. Have you ever regretted it? Regretted what? Those 3 years at Lunatech. I thought about it. I don't regret them. But I don't miss them either. What if you could do it over again? I don't deal in hypotheticals. She walked in silence for a few steps. Then let me ask a question that's not a hypothetical. Ask. Tomorrow evening. Are you free? I glanced at her. What for? Arctech's tech team wants to run an interface test for the Moonring system. I want to invite the technical lead from Stella to come and provide guidance. Are you asking Ryan out? I'm asking you out for a second bowl of noodles. Let Ryan handle the tech stuff. The street lights were very bright. I put my hands in my pockets. What time? 7. The same noodle shop? All right. She turned and walked towards her car. After a few steps, she stopped. Noah, what is it now? The name Arctech. Yes. Do you know why it's called that? I guessed. She stood under the streetlight, wearing an ordinary camel-colored coat, the wind blowing her hair across her face. And she didn't look like the President Vance from 5 years ago who stepped on 10-centimeter heels, draped in diamond necklaces. Nor did she look like the woman who came to beg me, bare-faced and crying a year ago. She was just an ordinary person, someone who had fallen shattered and pieced herself back together. See you tomorrow,
she said.
See you tomorrow. She got into her car. The headlights flickered on and merged into the stream of traffic. Ine stood at the entrance of the noodle shop. People hurried past on the street. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Noah. Tomorrow morning at 9, there's an investor meeting. Move it to 10. I have something at 9. What is it? Sleeping in, I walked along the street. The moon hung in the gaps between the office buildings.